In this video, I'm going to talk about arm weight and weight transfer at the piano. In my previous technique video, we did some exercises that were targeted toward learning to experience a heavy arm and loosen the muscles in your shoulders, neck, and arms. That was a video on arm weight. If you haven't seen it, you can go back and watch it by clicking on the link up here in the corner. Of course, being relaxed is only part of the story. It would be impossible to play the piano if you were totally relaxed. To play the piano effectively, you need to have moments of tension followed by immediate relaxation. Now, let's talk about arm weight. Obviously, you can't just drop your weight into the piano and be at the bottom of the key at all times. You wouldn't be able to play anything because you wouldn't be able to move from note to note. I think walking is a very good analogy here. When you walk, you don't slide your feet along the pavement. You lift your foot by lifting the knee, which lifts the lower leg and foot, and your ankle is flexible, adjusting to the angle of the foot as it lifts. It wouldn't be possible to walk if your ankle wasn't flexible. Also, when you walk, even though part of you maintains contact with the ground at all times, you're moving in a dynamic and constantly shifting way. As a result of shifting your weight from foot to foot, you actually can have the sensation of moving up and down in relation to the ground. You can see this when you look at other people walk because you see their heads going up and down as they walk, as they're shifting their weight higher and lower. Also, I want to point out that walking is incredibly intuitive. You don't have to think about how you're lifting your foot or whether you're lifting your toes or heel first. Your body knows how to do it. And it's actually possible to harness this intuition that the body has to help play the piano naturally and effectively, just like we walk naturally and effectively. Actually, as I was preparing this video, I was experimenting with walking around with inflexible ankles. I discovered that not only was it really hard to walk without flexibility in the ankle joint, but also when I lifted my foot with tight ankles, my toes got really tense too. So if you use the fingers and wrists as an analogy to the toes and ankles, you can see why when the wrist is tight, the fingers get tight too. So back to the topic of this video. What exactly is weight transfer? Weight transfer is simply the idea that you use the mechanism of your entire arm to transfer weight into the keys. When you play the piano, sometimes you're going to feel like you're at the bottom of the key, and sometimes you're going to feel like you're at the surface of the key. When you're at the bottom of the key, you're releasing your arm weight into the key. You're transferring your arm weight into the key. That's why we call it weight transfer. When you're on the surface of the key, you're lifting the arm weight out of the key by engaging muscles in your arm. One of the best kept secrets about playing the piano is that you're actually not at the bottom of the key very often, particularly in fast playing. Playing the piano is a strategic combination of dropping to the bottom of the key, alternating with lighter groups of notes on the surface of the keys. When you play the piano, you want to go to the bottom of the key and then immediately release tension once you've gotten there. This is very important. You don't want to keep pushing down once the key is depressed because the sound's already made, it's already cooked, and there's absolutely nothing more you can do to affect the sound. So when you're at the bottom of the key, don't keep pressing. Develop the sensation of keeping firm fingertips supporting the weight of your arm from the fingertip. This is another application of this idea of letting go of the instrument. Now that I've explained the concept of weight transfer, I'm going to demonstrate it in action. Today I have two examples for you. These are both examples that were sent to me by a viewer who had questions about weight transfer and how to implement it. This is Bach's C minor Prelude from the Well-Tempered Clavier Book 1 and Debussy's Arabesque No. 1. In the Bach Prelude here, I have a horizontal melodic and bass line that is created every 2 beats in my pinkies. So I'm going to want to drop into the keys on the first beat, then release over the next 7/16, then drop on the third beat and release again over the following 7/16. The dropping motion is literally into the keys and the lifting or hoisting motion is literally out of the keys. As in, there will be some wrist motion to help make this happen. So here's what it looks like. arabesque, I'm not going to want to start the piece with a lot of arm weight because it's a delicate piece with flowing triplets. If I were to drop my weight into the bottom of the key on every triplet, it would sound like this. Right? And we don't want that because that completely destroys the light gossamer feel of the line. So instead I want to keep the weight out of the keys until I need a bit more sound in the bass notes, which are coming up later in the page. So I'm gonna drop my weight in here later in the page. But other than that, I'm gonna be pretty much lifting out. So here's what it sounds like and looks like. Now I'm going to show you the basics of how to do weight transfer. This is a sort of complicated concept to learn and apply to your playing, and it usually is going to take a little while to get the hang of it, but I've broken it down into 5 steps to try to help. Step 1 is to relax your arm like we learned in the arm weight video. The second step is to support your arm with a strong hand bridge, feeling strength in your fingertip and feeling your shoulder, and then you're having your arm be heavy and loose in between these 2 points. The third step is in order to keep the hand from just slipping off the piano, we have to actually engage the bicep and the tricep to varying degrees to hold up the arm. And so becoming aware of the degree to which your bicep and tricep are engaged. And then the fourth step is the motion that's called drop and hoist, which I'm about to show you in more detail. And then the fifth step is to group notes together. So as you hoist, you play multiple notes at a time and you drop back down in the next place that you want to drop your weight to the bottom of the key. So here's how you do a drop and hoist motion. You use your wrist to drop to the bottom of the key and then lift out of the key again. In the video on alignment, we talked about the lateral motion of the wrist from side to side. The drop and hoist motion used in weight transfer is going to involve a vertical motion of the wrist, which will be exaggerated at first as you're getting comfortable with the motion. The important thing here is to coordinate the arm motion with the dropping of the finger. We want to go to the bottom of the key and then immediately release tension once we've gotten there. Just rest at the bottom of the keys. That's what it looks like. I'm lifting my weight out after I hit the bottom. I'm not dropping and holding on. That's not letting go. This is letting go. So the wrist motion is quick and vigorous, but you immediately release the weight after you reach the bottom of the key. You want the bottom of the motion to coordinate precisely with the place where you hit the bottom of the key. You don't want to go or, right? You want it's like your hand is a lever and the lever is what is making the key go down. You'll notice when it's perfectly coordinated because the sound from the piano is more ringing and clear, and you'll clearly feel the cause and effect of the motion from your arm and wrist and the sound. While you rest at the bottom of the key, check for tension in the arm. So check for a loose arm, just like we talked about in the arm weight video. You can check for tension with the opposite hand here. Here's how we're going to practice it. I practice this always with Hanon. So Hanon, the first exercise in the book is, okay, and we're going to do it on single notes. We're going to go, I'm dropping on each note. Each one I have a loose arm. You can listen, you can feel that your arm is loose and check. You can check after every one with your other hand if you want. Right? So you can do that, etc. Right? So work on that with hands separately, and just going on one hand, one note per motion. And then what you can do is you can start grouping notes, 2 and 3 and 4 notes at a time. So here's 2 notes, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Now my fingers are working, they're not totally limp, and they're happening from this joint here. I'm not doing this, I'm just dropping here as I do my wrist motion. So this is weight transfer. When the wrist drops down, I'm transferring my heavy arm weight into the keys and making the key go down. Now I'm going to show you with 3 notes. Etc. And then 4 notes. This really only practices 1 and 5. At first the motion's going to be quite exaggerated, so you're going to want to lift, and so drop and hoist. And then as you get more comfortable, and then it becomes almost imperceptible, especially as you go fast. Right, and that's where we get into I'm not going where I'm good. Right, I'm doing very short and then releasing in between every time I drop. What I've shown you here is a fundamental building block motion. It's really worthwhile practicing that motion until it becomes automatic and feels fully coordinated. Once it's integrated as part of your box of tools in your technique toolbox, you will be able to refine it and use this idea of dropping into the keys and releasing your weight out of the keys in your repertoire. This is the exercise I share with my students when I work on this concept with them. This is an exercise from Essential Finger Exercises by Ernst von Dohnányi, a 19th century pianist, composer, and teacher. I'll put a link to the book in the description below. So this is an exercise that I use with my students when we talk about weight transfer. And what I like about it is that it helps you practice dropping in every combination of black and white note patterns, and it also helps you learn to do it on every finger. Right? So we want to do that dropping motion on every one of them. Learning how to have loose arms and play with the weight of your arm is key to being able to play with fluidity and relaxation. I've created a free companion PDF with exercises to practice for each of the videos in this series that you can download by clicking on the link below. I add to it after each new technique video, and it's getting pretty long now, so check it out. In my next technique video, I'm going to conclude this series on the top 5 technical things I work on with my students by talking about wrist circles. See you there, and happy practicing.